35 people were injured when two trains collided at Newton Abbot station in South Devon. 3 passengers and the driver of one of the trains are tonight in Torbay Hospital in a serious condition.
It could have been a lot worse. The local MP, Patrick Nicholls, is now questioning British Rail's practice of putting 2 trains on the same track. BR has launched an inquiry to find out just what went wrong. We have 2 reports. The first is from Manfred Roxon.
The crash happened at 5 to 10 this morning. 200 passengers on board an Intercity 125 from Penzance to Edinburgh were waiting to pull out from platform 3 at Newton Abbot station. Unknown to them, a Sprinter train from Paignton with 40 people on board had also been directed onto platform 3 by signalmen in Exeter. British Rail say that's not uncommon, but seconds later the Sprinter ran into the back of the 125.
Some of those passengers, of course, were standing in the Sprinter as it was coming to the station, so were thrown more violently forward than those seated. They've all gone to hospital now, and probably up to half a dozen may be classed as serious injuries.
The casualty toll finally reached 35, including several children. A fleet of ambulances and the air ambulance helicopter took them to Torbay Hospital. This afternoon, the hospital confirmed 4 have serious injuries. Others have been treated for broken limbs, cuts, bruises and shock. The impact buckled the Sprinter's doors, trapping 16 people inside. Firefighters used cutting gear to reach them. The Sprinter's driver and guard were among those injured. The driver has already been questioned by Transport Police.
Any member of railway operating personnel involved in incidents like this are subject to stringent testing, which has been done. I don't have access to the results of that test, but really that is between us and the individual concerned. But rest assured that the test will be done. Every possible angle as to what might have caused this will be covered.
That includes alcohol testing?
That includes alcohol testing, drug testing and all the technical tests on the equipment.
The Employment Secretary was in Devon on other business and he came to inspect the crash scene.
All I'm concerned to make sure, as I'm responsible for the Health and Safety Commission, is that everything possible is being done to investigate the cause and to discover what went wrong as quickly as we can.
Today's crash is already raising serious questions about putting 2 trains on the same track.
That's obviously the question which the inquiry is going to have to decide. And certainly, once the inquiry has taken place, if anything has to be taken up with government, I shall certainly do it.
Until recently, Newton Abbot was a major British Rail station. I'm standing on what was platform 4. That's where the Paignton Sprinter used to arrive. Now platform 4 has been turned into a car park, forcing 2 trains to share platform 3.
Good evening. 29 people have been injured, 4 of them seriously, after 2 trains collided at Newton Abbot station this morning. A major investigation is now underway to establish how the accident happened.
The crash occurred just before 10 o'clock this morning. The Intercity 125 from Penzance to Edinburgh had stopped at the platform. It was running about 5 minutes late. It appears the 9:40 Paignton to Cardiff Sprinter, which was on the same line, was given a clear signal to enter the station. A few moments later, the collision occurred.
Emergency services were at the scene within minutes of the crash. Firemen had to cut the doors of the Sprinter open to get the injured out.
The first problem we had when we arrived is that we couldn't get through the doors of the front of the Sprinter. There was one gentleman trapped on the floor inside the door, but we had problems getting the doors opened, and then the fire brigade arrived and they used spreading gear and we managed to get in that way. The other injuries were chest injuries, neck injuries. We found an elderly German lady in one of the toilets with a spinal injury, which took us a fair while to get out, as well as did the passenger at the front of the Sprinter.
It's thought a total of 240 passengers were on the 2 trains. Many were suffering from shock. The injured were ferried to hospital by 11 ambulances and the Devon Air Ambulance. Staff at the station immediately began to investigate the cause.
We've got technical experts representing the people that look after both kinds of trains, the people that maintain the track and signalling, to investigate what happened, why it happened, whether everything took place in the correct sequence. And as soon as a report is published, then we'll have some idea of exactly what happened. But at the moment, we're in the process of finding out ourselves.
Rail services were severely disrupted throughout the day, but the line is now being cleared. The
cause of the crash is now the focus of attention at Newton Abbot. A full investigation has been promised by British Rail and the Transport Minister Robert Key. The scene was visited by the Secretary of State for Employment this afternoon. He fended off criticism of cutbacks in British Rail, saying that funding was not at fault here.
That point has been answered by British Rail, who say that they cannot see it has any relevance to this accident at all. But it's very important we learn the lessons we need to find, to discover, to make sure something like this just cannot be allowed to happen on our British Rail system.
The number of working platforms at Newton Abbot have been halved since 1987, although it is common practice to have 2 trains at a platform at the same time. Also, the signal box has been closed, with the centralisation of the system at Exeter. The signalling will be a major element in the inquiry.
What signal did the driver see? Was he stopped at the signal outside the station? Was he then given what's called the calling on signal to allow him to come in slowly behind the train that was already standing? His evidence will be vital on that, together with any other witnesses as to what signal he saw.
In fact, in 150 years of rail history in the southwest, there have been very few crashes with no deaths. Questions remain to be answered about what went wrong here today.